This is a key to topic 12, part A, and this is a worksheet that we called extra number 2. Now on this worksheet, you're given two rational expressions and you're multiplying them in each of those four problems. There are four problems. So let's go to the first one. So the first one we have this. Now remember, just like you did in the previous lesson, the first thing you have to do is to factor each of the numerators, factor each of the denominators, and then reduce, and then you multiply. All right, so just like you've been doing. So remember, you're going to factor first. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to factor. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So if you look at the first problem in the numerator, that's the difference of two squares. And so I'm going to get x minus 9, x plus 9. The denominator, the GCF is 1, so I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. And what's going to work will be, let's see, 9 and 6. So I get x minus 9, x plus 6. Okay, so that's going to be that one. The numerator of the second rational expression is linear, and the GCF is 1, so there's nothing I can do with that. And then the denominator is a monomial. All right, so there's nothing I can do with that either. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it. All right, so that was my first step. So the first step is to factor, and notice I factored what I could. The second step, just like you did in the previous worksheet, is to reduce. So let's reduce common factors. So notice my first factor is an x minus 9. You want to see there's a factor of x minus 9 anywhere in any of the denominators from the first rational expression or the second, does not matter. But notice there's only one, it's right here. So I'm going to reduce that. Now remember, make sure you write ones in their place. That's what that is. Because remember, when we in a previous course, when you had something like 5 divided by 5, you just didn't cross those out, right? You said 5 into 5 is 1, 5 into 5 is 1. So you had a factor of 1. That's what you had. 5 into 5 gives you a factor of 1. 5 into 5 gives you a factor of 1. That's what you said. So that's what you want to do here. Don't just cross those out. Because if you do, at some point, it is going to come back and haunt you for doing that. Make it a habit of putting ones in their place. Okay, the next factor is x plus 9. Notice that the only factors left in the denominator are these. So I cannot reduce that one. The next factor is x plus 6. So I can reduce that with that one. Same thing. Those divide out, put ones in their place. And notice that's it. So no other factors from the numerator to the denominator will reduce. All right, so reduce, and then the next step, since I'm multiplying, is to write as one rational expression. So write as one rational expression. So in other words, multiply this out. So you're going to say this. You're going to say 1 times x plus 9 times 1 is x plus 9. 1 times x is x. And that's your answer. So that's number 1. Number 2, just the same thing. So you're gonna factor first. So notice though the numerators, those are monomial factors. So leave that alone. There's nothing I can do right now in terms of factoring. I could probably reduce, but let's just factor first. We're going to reduce next. The next denominator right here, the denominator, I can factor that. So I'm going to get 15x divided by, and then let's see, the GCF is 1. So I'm going to go directly to the two binomials, and it looks like it's going to be x minus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, now let's go to the numerator. That is the difference of two squares. So I'm going to factor that as x minus 2, x plus 2. X minus 2, x plus 2. Divided by, and then those are monomial factors, so just go ahead and leave it like that. Okay, so first thing you did was factor. The next step is to reduce. All right, now be careful when you reduce. You got to look at your factors. The first factor I see is a 15. The next factor I see is an x. The next factor I see is x minus 2, x plus 2. And the denominator, my factors are x minus 2, 30, and x squared. All right, so those are your factors. You need to know your factors. You can only reduce factors. So this 15, I know, will go into this factor of 30. So 15 goes into 15 one time, 15 goes into 30 two times, right? The next factor is x. There's one factor of x here, there's 2 here. So I can reduce this one with one of these. So it's kind of like like if I had something like this, if I had 7 divided by 49. So y'all agree that that's the same thing as if 7 divided by 7 times 7? And then I can just reduce one of those factors of 7 down there, which gives me 1 divided by 7, right? Now what most of you did though, what almost all of you did was you said 77 is 1, 7 to 49 is 7. But the idea is this, which is what I'm trying to bring to you here with the variables. So x and x is 1, x and x squared gives me a factor of x. Okay? And so the next factor I see is x minus 2. Now I want you to notice that at some point, see how messy it's starting to become? So be careful when you write your answer, you don't leave something out. The next factor is x minus 2. I see 2 of them here, but I can only use 1. All right? And make sure you put factors of 1 in their place. The next factor is x plus 2. There is no x plus 2 as a factor in the denominator. So therefore, the numerator, you're going to write your answer as one rational expression. Now listen carefully to this part. 1 times 1 times 1 times x plus 2 is x plus 2 without the parentheses. Parentheses are not needed. Now, look at the next one. 1 times x minus 2 times 2 times x. Okay, now, always leave your answer in factored form. Leave answers in factored form. Leave answers in factored form. So in other words, you're going to say, let's do the monomials first. And always put the monomial in the front. 1 times 2 times x is 2x. I get 2x times x minus 2. Leave it like this. Don't do anything else. Leave it like that. Now, if you multiply this out, the denominator, is it wrong? No, it's not wrong, but we prefer to leave it in factored form. Leave it in factored form, you're done. All right, so in other words, if someone said this, x plus 2 divided by, and they distributed 2x, and they said 2x squared minus, and what's that, 4x? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's still correct. I mean, you simplified this product right here into this, but leave it in factored form, because I'm telling you, if you multiply it out and there's an error, even though this is correct and you made an error, you don't get full credit, because every statement you write has to be mathematically correct. All right, number 3. All right, number 3, okay, that's a long one. So here's number 3. Okay, so here's number 3. So notice you have these 4 polynomials. Let's factor the first numerator. So that's going to be and notice that all the GCFs and all of them is 1. So I'm going to go directly to the 2 binomials in every case. So for that one, the numerator looks like it's going to factor as x plus 7, x minus 5. The denominator, let's see, it looks like that one is going to be x plus 8, x minus 5. The numerator here looks like that one's going to be x minus 8, x plus 2. The denominator looks like that's going to be x plus 7, x plus 2. All right, so that's how you factor those. And so now remember the next step. Once you factor, the next step is to reduce. So you have quite a few factors here. X plus 7, x minus 5, x minus 8, x plus 2, x plus 8, x minus 5, x plus 7, x plus 2. Let's start with the first factor in the numerator, x plus 7. Is there a factor of x plus 7 in the denominator? Yes, right here. So those will divide out. Let's do the next one, x minus 5. I see one right here. Those will divide out into each other. So make sure you put factors of 1s in their place, though. The next factor is x minus 8. I don't see any x minus 8 as a factor in the denominator. The next factor is x plus 2. I see one right here. Those divide out. And that's it. That's all you can reduce, nothing else. So the answer is going to be 1 times x minus 8 times 1 is x minus 8. Parentheses, don't use them. They're not needed. Leave it as x minus 8. The denominator, x plus 8, and all these are products of 1, so you just get x plus 8. So that's your answer. So that's number 3. Okay, let's see number 4. Okay, so number 4, we have this. So So notice that in all these cases, the GCF is 1, and all these polynomials in the numerators and the polynomials in the denominators, the GCF is 1. So I'm going to go directly to factoring as two binomials, at least for the first one. And so notice that the only way to factor this one is to say 4x and x. 2x and 2x won't work. You got to say 4x and x. And then it looks like we need a 5 here, 1 there, and the last sign is positive, so these are both be negative. And you may want to check this one. It's a little bit more complicated, so let's just check it. 4x times x is 4x squared. A negative 5 times a negative 1 is a positive 5. The outer is a negative 4x. The inner is a negative 5x. And when I add them up, I get negative 9x. The denominator, that's the difference of two squares. So I get x minus 1, x plus 1 times. Now be careful here. You look for a GCF. The GCF here is x, right? So I can factor out an x. I get x times x plus 1. Over here in the denominator, again, it looks a little bit more complicated, so be careful. And the only way to factor this one is to use 4x and x. So I'm going to say 4x and x. And then last sign's negative, and it looks like this can be a 5, a 1, negative, positive. So let's double check. A 4x times x is 4x squared. A negative 5 times a positive 1 is a negative 5. The outer is a positive 4x. The inner is a negative 5x. And when I add them up, I get negative x. Okay, so I factored correctly. Now the next step is to reduce any common factors. So my first factor I see is 4x minus 5. I see a 4x minus 5 in the denominator as a factor. So that will reduce out. We'll divide out. So you get factors of 1. Make sure you put 1s in their place. Don't just cross them out. The next factor is x minus 1. I see 1 here, so I can factor those out. The next factor is x. I don't see any x's occurring as a factor. You may say, what about this x? That's not a factor. This is your factor. This is a term of the factor. Remember, you can only reduce factors. Remember that word, factors. So that's why we always went in and we said, what are our factors? The next factor is x plus 1. I see an x plus 1 here. I see an x plus 1 here. It does not matter which one you use. If you want to use this one, then you divide those out. Put ones in their place. If you want to use this one, it does not matter. Okay? I'm going to just go ahead and use this one. So these divide out to get ones as factors in their place. And that's it. So therefore your answer is 1 times 1 times 1 times x is x. 1 times 1 times 1 times x plus 1 is x plus 1. All right, and so that is the key to this worksheet. So this worksheet only had 4 problems on it.